Hello world, welcome to Thoughts with an Accent. And here we talk about life in the modern world, how we humans think and behave in today's reality, and why. Hi guys, and welcome to the second episode of my podcast. Thank you so much for all your support and lovely words that you shared with me after the first episode. I didn't expect that many messages, but I was very happy. So please keep them coming. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, leave your comments below. And if you're listening to it on any other platform, you can go to my Instagram. It's going to be linked in the episode description, and let me know what you think. So today we'll be talking about friendship, and not just any kind of friendship, but friendships after 30. I am 35. I will be turning 36 this year. I'm not going to be saying, oh, I can't believe it. I mean, it is what it is. And I am embracing every year as it comes. Anyway, this question, the question of friendships, is quite, it's interesting because when I was in my 20s, I didn't really think much about how friendships and the dynamics of my relationships with other people will change after a certain age. I didn't even think it was a thing, but I did start to notice that certain relationships, just end. I'm talking about friendly relationships now. Certain friendships end. Certain friendships all of a sudden reappear. You reconnect with people who you haven't spoken to in years, and then you're just able to pick up where you left off. I've found it quite curious and fascinating. Sometimes, you don't know what to expect, how to behave, how to behave around people, how to be a good friend, how to be around friends. What is a friend, when you are at a certain age? So all those questions, they kind of gathered in my head, and I thought, why not discuss it with you guys? So there we are. This is the topic for today. And I'd like to start with a couple of studies because there are people, researchers, sociologists who do think about it, who do ask questions and conduct studies. And one of the studies that I saw is a study that was conducted by the Aalto University in Finland and Oxford University in the UK. And that study revealed that at the age of 25, we reach the maximum number of social connections. And after that age, we just start losing them. Interestingly, the researchers also say that women start losing friends more quickly, but towards the age of 40, men are left with fewer close friends. So they believe that women invest more time and effort into finding and maintaining relationships with those friends who fit that best of friend ideal. So that's one study. It's interesting. And it was done, the study was conducted by analyzing behavioral patterns of around 3 million people across Europe who were using mobile phones and social networks. So the researchers looked at the frequency and duration of their phone calls and the way people use social media. So that's how they came up with those results. I felt a little bit sad, to be honest, when I read that we start losing connections very quickly, but it's kind of true. And sometimes, you look at the number of your Facebook friends and you think, oh, that's hundreds and hundreds of people. And with most of them, you probably haven't spoken in years. There's another study that was conducted in 2015 at the University of Rochester in New York. That study was conducted over 30 years. and it looked at people in their 20s and 30s, at the age of 20 and 30. The authors of the study say that in our 20s, or when we're 20, we are interested more in exploring the world, learning more about the world, just getting as much information as we can. And socializing with people is a good way of doing that. And when we turn 30, our priorities, our goals change, and we start concentrating more on quality rather than quantity. So these researchers looked at students from the 1970s, the students of that university, and they asked people who are 20 and 30 to record their daily interactions and score them on intimacy and on pleasantness. Decades later, the same people were asked about their psychological well-being, including depression, loneliness, and the quality of their friendships. And this is what the study revealed. It showed that the quantity of one's friends when they're 20 is a more reliable predictor of psychological well-being later in life. But for 30-year-olds, it was the quality that was a more reliable predictor. And more frequent social activity at the age of 30 was associated with a slightly worse psychological well-being at the age of 50. Supposedly, it's because the number of interactions and social connections prevents people from building meaningful relationships with them. Of course, we know that a lot of studies have their limits, and the authors themselves agree that that particular research had its limits. It was focused only on a small sample of people, but still, there are a lot of things to unpack. Why is there such a big difference between your 20s and your 30s? What happens there? In fact, sociologists believe that there are three main factors that are essential for making close friends, and they are proximity, frequent unplanned interactions with that person. So you need to be close to them physically, interacting or bumping into them, basically. And the context that allows people to let their guard down and confide in each other. So these three things are crucial for making close friends. And when we're in our 20s, think, university environment, it's always there. You spend so much time with the same people. You bump into them, whether it's the university building or maybe university halls. I lived in a student dormitory, and you see people, almost 24/7, the same people. You study with them, you live with them. And those were the years that were full of all sorts of interactions. I still have two of my closest friends who I met at uni. And of course, everybody is going through so much emotionally that context allows people to confide in each other. This is like the perfect setup for building close friendships. And indeed, a lot of people have their close friends from the university years. Okay, so when we build those connections in our 20s, what happens after? How does it change? A lot of change happens because of important life events. We get jobs in different places. We move to a new city, to a new country. We find a partner. We have kids. There are a lot of scenarios that can change the dynamics. Let's say you are in a relationship with someone and you're serious about it. Very often people change their circles of friends, and they need to make sure they both get on with other people. Some people still have separate groups of friends, and then the third group of friends, which is their common circle of friends. But it's not uncommon to drop off some social connections when you are in a serious relationship.
or if you move to a different country. What I've learned from my own experience and from my friends' experiences who also moved abroad is sometimes people who are local to the place where you're moving, they see you as somebody who comes and goes. They don't think it's worth it to invest time or effort in building a meaningful relationship with you if you then just take off and move somewhere else. So if you are a young specialist moving abroad and trying to find friends there, that and you're struggling to find friends there, that could be a reason. People, when people are about to invest their effort in something, they want the other person to do the same. But if for you it's something temporary, they might not bother. It can be quite heartbreaking, but that's the truth. Another important factor, of course, that has an impact on friendships is having children. I found myself at the age of 27 moving abroad with a small baby. When our son was 3 months old, my husband, myself, and our son, we moved to Spain, where I didn't speak the language, didn't know anyone, had a little baby, didn't know how to be a mom. All of that was so overwhelming. But at the same time, I was excited about the new country, the new place. And what I also thought, I will never go to one of those mum and baby clubs because I never wanted to be friends with somebody who only sees me as somebody else's mum. I think that kind of attitude stuck with me for quite a few years. I was struggling making friends with somebody who is not there, because I'm an interesting person, but we're just there because we have kids at the same age. But I did go to a few of those gatherings, and I did meet some lovely girls. With some of them, we're still in touch. With some of them, we're not. But it's also okay. I think when you are 30, instead of having, one best friend, you end up having so-called situational friends, lovely, reliable people who you meet through different areas of, interest or involvement in your life. And it's okay. Because when I started working there in Spain, I met a lot more people. But of course, most of them were in their early mid-20s, no kids, no families. So there was a very important experience in my life that I couldn't share with my colleagues, which creates partial overlap of your experiences. The older you become, the harder it is to find somebody with exactly the same life path so that you could connect over so many different life events. You will find that with somebody you share, your parenthood. With somebody else, you share your interest for whatever professional interest you have. With somebody else, you share your hobby. And I think having those so-called situational friends might create the impression that you don't really have good friends. But then again, what is a good friend? I think it's another question to ask yourself. If in our teenage years, in our early 20s, we can spend a lot of time with other people, with our friends. We might not have a serious relationship. We might not have kids yet. So we have a lot more time and energy to invest in that. But later, when there are other things that require your attention and your time and your effort right there in front of you, it's a lot harder to actually be physically with your friends. And that's another thing that makes it a little bit tricky, because you might be willing to spend a lot of time with someone, but then there are so many other commitments, work, family, or maybe you just want to, sit at home, watch Netflix by yourself. Days like that happen. Another thing that comes to my mind that can contribute to us losing social contact is the change in social and professional status. I remember when I moved to the UK and I came here, on a 1-year volunteering program where I was a volunteer here while my friends back home, or my university friends, my just friends, were building careers. They were getting onto graduate programs at famous corporations, and they were talking about that, and it seemed so exciting. And I had a very different life experience at the time. I was doing something that was not for money, that was not for status. It was something to do with the life experiences I personally was seeking. But when they are so different, I found it hard to be within that network. So with time, I lost quite a lot of connections because of that as well. Although, interestingly, years later, with some of them, we reconnected because people have their own paths. And sometimes at later stages in life, you just find that your priorities match now, and you can reconnect and just pick up where you left off, and it feels amazing. So that's great. And you might think, why am I saying all that? And I guess I have a few conclusions, or maybe some, I wouldn't say tips, but yeah, some thoughts that might help you feel better if you're unsure about the friendships you have. First of all, remember that life is not a TV show. Sometimes we watch series like Sex and the City, and we look at those amazing groups of friends who meet up for cocktails every weekend, and they have those exciting conversations, and they all look fabulous. Well, life is not that. We all have our own experiences, and they can be very different from the screen. So don't try to think that that's what ideal friendships look like. The next thing is that, and I already mentioned it before, don't worry if you don't have one single best friend. Sometimes it could be a whole support group. There's nothing wrong with sharing some experiences with some people and other experiences with others. It doesn't make those connections any less meaningful. Also, don't be harsh on yourself. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm a terrible friend. I don't message as frequently as I probably should. I don't spend as much time with my friends as I should. We're all busy. We have lives. And although with time, I guess we're more picky about who we want to be around in life, we're also busy. So priorities do matter. And I'd say just be honest with the people who matter to you. With some of my friends, we agreed that in our messages, we are not going to say, oh, I'm sorry that I haven't messaged you in, I don't know, a couple of weeks or something, or in a month. We know that we're busy. We know that we have our lives. It's okay not to respond straight away. I mean, everybody has their own boundaries, their own preferences, their own love languages, friendship languages. So just be honest with yourself and your friends about it. I think they will appreciate it. And if you're feeling lonely, maybe rethink your approaches to meeting new people. You might be surprised and meet somebody who you can instantly connect with in a very unexpected place. This is all I wanted to say today. Thank you very much for staying until the end of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow wherever you're listening to this. Leave your comment, and I'll see you